10 a.m, Saturday the 14th of August, and teams from all over the world have converged on Amaroo Park, west of Sydney, for the start of the annual Sydney to Darwin cross-country rally. 9 days of outback torture known as the Australian Safari. After last year's damp beginnings, the competitors have revelled in the fine weather that complemented this year's starting festivities. The international flavour of the event is prominent again this year, with competitors from Europe, North America and the Pacific Rim countries here again to try their luck and skill against the challengers of the Australian outback. At the starters' countdown, the field, led by the motorcycles, roars away on the first leg of the rally, a challenging 8-kilometre off-road section in bushland around Amaroo Park. In the cycle division, French father and son duo Daniel and Eric Pescher are experienced rally competitors, having 17 Paris-Dakar starts between them, as well as Moroccan, Egyptian and Paris-Moscow-Beijing rallies under their belts. A 6-man Taiwanese team is here to try its luck on Honda 650s, but they are yet to find out just what the Australian Outback has in store for them. 1988 Safari motorcycle champion Michael Goddard earned the pole position and had the fastest time around the tough Amaroo Park section. Defending four-wheel drive champions Reg Owen and Andy Brown, returning with their turbocharged AAMI Nissan Patrol, will have their work cut out to retain their title against a strong field including last year's third-place getters Bruce McClintock and his Japanese navigator Hiro Sajima, who set a blistering pace around Amaroo in their Holden Jackaroo V6. A strong French contingent is here again. This is Etienne Smuleveci back for his second Safari. Safari veteran Rod Emmons accepted a factory drive, campaigning a Daihatsu Rocky Turbo diesel, and Canadian Walt Peterson is hoping to see the finish line in Darwin in his Chevy Sonoma. Townsville's Jeff Pickering is back again in the Pajero, leading Jean-Pierre Molocco from Paris, France in the potent Nissan Terrano.
Welcome to the 1993 Australian Safari. 6,500 k's of the toughest, roughest and most gruelling desert race in the world. We've got a very, very good quality field this year. A total of 52 starters. We don't have no way of knowing how many of those 52 starters will get to Darwin, but in actual fact we have such a high quality field that I believe this year's finishing rate will be the best ever. The first away, as I said earlier today, is Michael Goddard here on the KLX 650 Kawasaki, Michael being the top seed in the motorcycle section this year.
The Ironmen of the Australian Safari, the motorcycle riders, they're away first. Goddard being followed by Adelaide's Steve Brown, and second favourite for the Safari, Glenn Hoffman on a Honda XR 650. The 4-man French motorcycle contingent, all experienced Paris-Dakar campaigners, came to try their luck at the Australian event. This is Daniel Pescher on a Yamaha XTZ 660. His compatriot Frank Cultrera rode a well-prepared Kawasaki KLXR 650. The second of the Pescher family, Eric, also on a Yamaha XTZ 660, roars away, but as others have found before him, the heavy and bulky European style of desert racing bike that typifies the African events is a bit of a handful in the far tougher and tighter Australian conditions. French motorcycle policeman Raymond Lazo is on the biggest bike in the field. This is a 1000cc BMW. He's also a long-time desert racer in Africa, but it's his first crack at the Australian safari. He steers the heavy BMW carefully around the slippery Amaru course, knowing that the safari isn't won in the first section and that the big bike will come into its own in the open deserts where he can use all its huge power and frightening top speed.
Rob's previously competed in a Range Rover or a Land Rover most years, but this year was offered a drive with the Ultimate Suspension Daihatsu team. Rob, this is a little bit smaller thing than what you've been used to, but tell us what about the vehicle? How do you like it? How does it go? And how do you expect to go this year?
Oh, it's definitely a different car. I think the Range Rover's had a baby, and the only real difference is the independent front end that I'm not real sure of. But it seems a strong car, or it definitely is. It's handled beautiful on the rough, so I expect to go well.
Emmons has entered the Australian National Auto class as the Daihatsu Rocky he's driving has not yet been homologated with FISA, but he's a determined competitor and will be hard to beat in his class, never having been beaten in a diesel and having finished every one of the 8 safaris he has entered. Emmons' toughest rival in the national division is one of the real characters of the safari, Peter Barnes from Outback Birdsville, better known as Barnesy, and navigated by Cole Sutherland. Peter is known as one of the most experienced desert drivers in Australia, and his Toyota FJ75 should almost know the way by itself. This Nissan Pathfinder's Japanese crew, Tezuka and Watanabe, didn't realise the hot time that was ahead for them. South Australian veteran man and wife safari team John and Gwenda White returned in their trusty 2-wheel drive Holden 1-tonner, one of only 2 2-wheel drive vehicles in the field this year. Rodney Garnett and Jerry Duveston teamed up in this beautifully prepared Porsche 911, probably the fastest car in the field, but lacking in ground clearance. And that was to prove their undoing, as they had underestimated the toughness of the terrain over which the Australian safari passes.
Defending champions Reg Owen and Andy Brown. Reg, how do you rate your chances this year?
I think we're much the same as last year. It could be a race out of 10 cars. Certainly we've got the horsepower and the goods. We've learnt a lot since last year. We've rebuilt a different type gearbox. Our horsepower, we've got more usable horsepower than last year. The torque figures are very good for your sandy sections. What caught us shy last year was the Simpson Desert Crossing. I was noted on the commentating before, with the fuel consumption, we ended up putting in a 280 litre fuel tank so that we could get through the Simpson Desert without slowing up like we did last year. And I think we might buy the fuel a little bit cheaper before we go into the desert this time.
Ian Swan and Colin Gow on the way to Darwin again this year after a disastrous start to the event last year, where you only got sort of halfway through the second day and then got a stick through the radiator and everything went bad from there. I guess you're hoping for a lot better luck and a better run this year, Swanee.
Bob, I've been trying to get this monkey off my back for the last 12 months so that we can get on and get serious this year, and I'm determined not to have anything like that next time.
Good on you. Now, the preparation of the vehicle, obviously, it didn't go very far last year, so you wouldn't have had all that many repairs to do. Have you done any other modifications to the vehicle at all?
Well, needless to say, after a little accident, I had to put a new engine in it, and we've modified that quite substantially over last year, so it's making a lot more horsepower than it was before. But other than that, we just checked every nut and bolt and went right over it. People say to us that it's prepared well, but my answer is I've had 2 years to do it. So.
That's fair enough. And how do you think you'll go against the bigger power of Reg and Andy's car up front?
Well, there's no way we can match their power. That they've got quite a substantial more power than we have. We've just got to be in there and just keep plodding on.
To make reliability the secret weapon, I guess, eh?
Well, this event, it's a bit of everything. If you don't have the performance, you're not going to win it. If you don't have reliability, you've got to be at the finish to win anything. So
that's right. One of our leading privateers, once again on the Safari, probably, if not the most, certainly one of the most experienced competitors in the Safari, having been in just about every one. Rod Jones from Bathurst, and navigated by Warren Thompson over there in the passenger seat. Warren, what's it like to sit next to a fellow like this at the speeds that you drive?
Exciting. No, it's very good. I've never done any rallying prior to 1990 when I first went into it, and it was to go into it for a bit of fun, and I found that I enjoyed it, so I've come back each time. It's been great.
Great. Rod, I know that you've been burning the midnight oil in the last few days, finally preparing this car. Do you feel that everything's 100% in running order now?
Oh, it's pretty close. The car's pretty old. I just expect to sort of go to the line, start it up, and it's going to drive itself around. It's been there that many times now. But we're just looking to have a good run and a lot of luck, and yeah, we'll be fine.
Missing for the first time ever was the Mitsubishi Rally Art team.
What time did the Rally Art team get here?
There's no f***ing cars!
After the first competitive section at Amaroo Park, the cross-country marathon heads west across the Blue Mountains, through Lithgow and Mudgee on its way to Dubbo in the central west of New South Wales. At Dubbo, competitors make minor adjustments and final preparations for the following morning when the real safari gets underway through 6,400 kilometres of the toughest terrain the Australian outback has to offer. Throughout the safari, satellite communications are provided by Telecom, so some call home, while others simply settle down to rest for the big days ahead. It's a cold pre-dawn start for day 2 of the Australian Safari as competitors pack up their tents and make last-minute preparations before heading over 200 kilometres west through Narromine and Nyngan to Muriel Tank. That's the start of the first of the bush sections and the beginning of the real safari test. Fastest at Amaroo, Bruce McClintock's Jackaroo was the first away, followed by Rod Jones of Bathurst in the Nissan and navigated by Warren Thompson of Port Stephens, New South Wales. We asked event director Bob Carpenter how the rally sections were devised.
Well, the whole of the course is comprised either of competitive or non-competitive sections. The competitives, called selectives, are all held on private property and closed roads, and the object is to achieve the fastest time possible. The non-competitive or road sections are held on public roads where all traffic regulations and speed limits apply, and these road sections simply link up the selectives. The results are calculated by the aggregate of the times through the selective sections, with the shortest overall time being the winner.
This selective, along the railway service track east of Cobar, is a fast and furious section with a few surprises for the drivers. Ofalenko and his son Ben have teamed up to tackle the safari on their first ever attempt. but Hock is no stranger to the event. He's been a team mechanic in the past. Glenn Hoffman streaks towards an early lead ahead of Michael Goddard, and Robert Emmons has the Rocky running strongly. The South Australian husband and wife duo of John and Gwenda White picked their way through the mud in their Holden HJ 1-ton ute. That's just two-wheel drive. While the immaculate Porsche of Jerry Duveston and Rod Garnett already shows some panel damage. The Holden-bodied Range Rover Special of Brian Danielson and Bob Nicholson charges through. Masumi from Saitama in Japan is an experienced racer, but his road racing background ill-prepared him for this Cobar mud. Number 105, Andrew Stott overtakes McClintock, Owen and Jones on the tough Leopardwood Selective. Leopardwood Ridge is a steep and rocky climb, only 7.5 kilometres into the 202 kilometre selective section. The competitors are not the only ones flying low. Air Safari is on the lookout for all the action. Bega's Max Roberts and Tony Carroll are back again with a strong challenge in a well-prepared Bega Cheese-sponsored Mitsubishi Triton Ute. Eventual winner Michael Goddard makes it look just so easy as he powers his Kawasaki KLX 650 westward. Frenchman Yves Maurice in the Toyota Land Cruiser falls victim to a hidden washout, and so did Glenn Hoffman, but it didn't worry him too much. Moving into first place in the National Division are Peter Barnes and Colin Sutherland from Birdsville in their Toyota Land Cruiser. And just look at this blistering pace on the first two selectives by Andy Stott in the AAMI Nissan Patrol.
I'd certainly prefer to be in this position with, say, 1 or 2 days to go, but with 8 to go, it's a long way. Anything could happen between here and Darwin.
And that second section was pretty rough. So
it was very rough. In actual fact, my poor navigator, about 50 kilometres in, leaned over and said he was in real strife, struggled around in the cabin to find a plastic bag and spent the next 8 kilometres losing his lunch into it. So we had an exciting couple of kilometres there. But as a team, we're looking very strong. We've first, second and fourth outright. No damage to the 3 cars. The boys are very pleased with the way they're finishing. We had a few flat tyres today on 2 of them, but as an overall picture, we're looking good.
Dawn on day 3 of the Australian Safari, and a pall of fine dust hangs over the desert as the competitors race across the border into South Australia, heading for Curnamona Station and the first fuel stop of the day. The turbocharged power of Reg Owen and Andy Brown's Nissan Patrol has it outpacing the Jet Ranger Chopper as it streaks westward, but his AAMI teammates Ian Swan and Colin Gow aren't far behind, just in front of Denham's Jackaroo as they head towards the Flinders Ranges. Curnamona Station, just east of the Flinders Ranges, and a welcome rest for crews at a refuel stop and the chance to catch up on running repairs.
Tried to run on, which isn't wise. 160, 180 kilometres an hour, knowing the front left tyre is not healthy. And we tried to keep going. We had 35 kilometres to go, and trying to look after it, threw it into a corner the wrong way and up on two wheels, and it just ran along on two wheels. And I actually had time to say to Tangles, we're going, we're going, we're going, and it dropped back down. But as it dropped, it blew the flat one off the rim, so we had to stop and change it.
The old road selective follows, in part, the track which used to be the main road north, originally joining the great sheep stations of the past. It provided access for shearers and drovers, as well as the occasional mailman. Now it welcomes competitors from many nations. As the safari moves west, it follows the edge of Lake Torrens, one of Australia's largest salt lakes, as the competitors battle the odds through some of the harshest country in the world. Frenchman Daniel Pecheur will tell you, the Australian Outback has no favourites, and even the safari official vehicles aren't spared as they too battle the odds in the race to Darwin.
One of the Taiwanese riders fell over, and he was so exhausted he couldn't even pick his own bike up. So we gladly helped him up, got him started, and he's on his way, so we just hope that he gets through this stage okay.
Taiwanese riders Jung Hua Wang and his teammates Chao Lin Chen and Cheng Ta Chang were all victims of extreme exhaustion. 700 kilometres of outback Australia each day is just too much for their inexperienced bodies to take.
Okay. Sit down, sit down. I go to Darwin.
But while the French and Australian riders pressed on, the effort became too much for 3 of the 6 Taiwanese who couldn't go to Darwin, as he said, and finished the day in hospital suffering from extreme exhaustion.
We were having some fun, but we were pushing too hard. We put it over side by side. Mechanically it seems to be okay. We've come in as it is for the last 150 kilometres. But the boys have got will have a late night, I think.
Pretty useless driver.
Yeah, he's only a shorty, what would he? You're only 4 foot high.
When the boss rolls his car, we have to work on our own. He pinched all the mechanics. This is what a Nissan's supposed to look like.
Prophetic words indeed from Ian Swan, who emulated Andy Stott's effort by rolling his own Nissan the very next day. Roxby Downs at the end of day 3. The scoreboard showed Ian Swan and Colin Gow leading from Andy Stott, with the Jackaroo of McClintock and Sajima hot on their heels. The national autos were led by the Barnes Sutherland Toyota in front of Rob Emmons' Daihatsu Rocky, and then came Dennis and John Coker's Toyota. In the motorcycle division, Glenn Hoffman held a 12-minute lead over Goddard, with Steve Brown in 3rd place. It's day 4, and the competitors brave the chill of the desert air to take their starts. With Mount Dare in the far north of South Australia their goal on this, the 4th day of the 1993 Australian Safari, they can only guess at the obstacles to come. The course today takes them through the Badlands of South Australia, with refuel stops at the tiny outback villages of William Creek and Oodnadatta on their way northwards. The first selective out of Roxby Downs travels through the southern parts of the huge Anna Creek Station, the world's largest cattle station, and passes through country that frequently reaches temperatures of 45 to 50 degrees Celsius in summer. This steep and rough jump up from a valley floor to the plateau rim causes many competitors on 2 wheels and 4 to wonder what else was in store on the route to Darwin. Isuzu teammates Bruce Garland and Terry Denham tackle the jump up vigorously, their near stock vehicles taking the punishment in their stride. The motorcycles had it tougher though, and Frenchman Eric Pecheur wishes he was back in the Sahara Desert. Father and son team Dennis and John Coker take it easy in the Toyota FJ75, as do Danielson and Nicholson in the hybrid Range Rover Holden. The media stand by to catch all the action. John and Gwenda White in the 2-wheel drive Holden 1-tonner attack the hill with gusto, but for them disaster looms.
Yeah, I reckon I just took the centre out and bloody
As physical exhaustion takes its toll on the motorcyclists, the true spirit of the Australian safari takes over, competitors helping each other through. After all, they are all first and foremost competing against the unforgiving outback terrain.